Hello YouTube, how's it going? This is the crossover and I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be breaking down my big board for the upcoming 2021 NBA draft. I'm going to be ranking my 30 favorite prospects in this draft. It's officially draft season since the NBA Finals just finished. Congratulations to the Bucks winning their first ring in 50 years, and Giannis, officially cementing himself amongst the pantheon of all-time greats. But the draft is, as of this recording, a week away, so I want to get out my thoughts of all these prospects. I've talked about most of these guys in my previous videos, talking about which teams should look to draft who. So today I'm going to be releasing a full list of my thoughts on who the 30 best players in this draft class are, as well as where I would rank them against each other. To start off my big board, I'm going to be breaking down who I think are the 10 best prospects in this class. First off, I have Cade Cunningham, who is the clear head and shoulders the best prospect in this class. I think he's the best scorer in this class. I think he's going to come in and be a three-way level scorer. He shows shades of Jason Tatum with that bag, the skill level that he has at that size. I think he's the best shooter in this class, especially on the ball, as well as being the best overall playmaker in this class. He's able to make all the reads, full court reads, cross court reads in the half court. He's able to make great reads out of the pick and roll, find the roll man. Assist numbers weren't all that high in college because of the lack of talent surrounding him. But once you put him in Detroit around players like Sadiq Bey, Jeremy Grant, Isaiah Stewart, Killian Hayes, I think he's only going to continue to grow, especially as a playmaker, as well as make those around him better. I expect him to win Rookie of the Year, and I expect him to become an All NBA caliber player for years to come. Moving on to my second best prospect, I have Evan Mobley at number 2. I've covered him in length in my Houston video, as well as who I have at number 3. But Evan Mobley, I'm expecting him to be a switchable big, be able to switch 1 through 5 in the NBA, as well as a great rim protector. He has great instincts on that side of the floor. I think he's going to be an all NBA caliber defender as a big man who's able to switch multiple positions, which is extremely valuable in today's NBA. On the offensive end, I think his greatest skill is his ability to find open men, especially out the pick and roll, as well as the post. But the one thing about him being a post player, and he does have great touch and whatnot, but he lacks meat on his body. He has a small frame, so defenders tend to be able to push him out of his spots. But he has great touch, great floaters, great hooks. And as well, he has a great stroke again with that soft touch. He shot great from the free throw line, so I expect him to be able to shoot eventually in the NBA as he continues to grow as a player. So with all that in mind, a switchable big who's able to switch multiple positions, as well as be one of the best rim protectors in the NBA, an all NBA level big man, as well as being an awesome playmaker and shooter for a big man, and being able to score at the low post. That's a very scary and valuable player to have in Evan Mobley, and I think he's going to be a franchise cornerstone for whoever drafts him. My third best prospect, I have Jalen Green. Really a human highlight reel. We all know about Jalen Green and that freakish athleticism that he has. That's the gracefulness in his game that he has, where he's able to float in the air and finish around the basket is really something to watch. I think he's going to be a three-way level scorer in the NBA. I think he does need to work on his consistency with his handle. As there was many times where he defenders would just pick his pockets, and there were other times where he would hit them with a hezzy cross between the legs, step back 3-pointer, and he'd make it look so effortless. So getting consistent with creating his own shot as well as his handles, I think that's the number one goal for him moving forward. As well, and I think on defense, I think he definitely has potential. He showed flashes of being a great on-ball defender, but off the ball, there were times where he got caught lacking, but where he got caught sleeping. And there were other times where he was just abused in pick and rolls. He was really lost when guarding pick and rolls. Whether it was fighting through the screen, getting on the screen, over the screen, etc. But on the ball with no screen, just him and the guard he was guarding on an island, I think he did a great job, and he definitely has potential as an off-ball defender with his athleticism at the next level. So has defensive potential, but again, he's going to be a 20, 25 point per game scorer in the NBA. I expect him to be an all-star for years to come. I think, again, he's going to be a franchise player just like Evan Mobley and Cade Cunningham for whichever team that drafts him. Moving on to my fourth best prospect, I have James Bouknight, which is a very unpopular opinion. But when you take a look at James Bouknight being at that 6'4", 6'5" frame for a two guard, great long wingspan, amazing athleticism, not quite as bouncy as Jalen Green, but I think he's a much more forceful athlete than Jalen Green. And again, I think it doesn't look as impressive as Jalen Green because I think he's a bit bigger than Jalen Green, especially with his wingspan. But really a three-level scorer in college. I think he's going to be a three-level scorer in the NBA. If you look at the three-point percentage, it doesn't suggest that for James Bouknight, as he only shot about 29% from three, which is really bad. But when you actually watch the tape, he has an awesome stroke. He's a great mid-range scorer, great finisher around the basket. So he's already got those two parts of his game locked down. From behind the arc, he took a lot of contested shots, which I think when you put him in the NBA, where he's going to be, surrounded by much better talent than he was at UConn, where he's going to be put in a lot more catch and shoot situations, especially early on in his career. I think you're going to see a lot more consistency from the behind the arc percentage wise. But again, his stroke is great. He's a great finisher around the basket, awesome mid range scorer, arguably the best mid range scorer in the class. In my opinion, he's going to come in and be a three-way scorer right off the bat. I think he's going to be a more polished scorer than Jalen Green to start off their careers in the NBA. And I don't think he's the best defender in the world, but again, how strong he is, how athletic he is, I think he's going to be able to. Defenders aren't necessarily going to be able to attack him and take advantage of him. Similar to like a Tobias Harris a couple of years ago, where he's not the greatest defender, but again, how big he is and how strong he is. You can't just. He's not a liability per se. But I really love James Bouknight's ability to put the ball in the basket. Again, with that size and athleticism, I'd say he has a similar upside to Jalen Green. And I think, where he's projected to go, in that I've seen him go anywhere from 8 all the way to, 18 to the OKC Thunder. So if he's selected within that range, that's great value, but I have him viewed as a top 5 pick just because of how valuable his creation ability is, again, at that size with that athleticism. Moving on to my fifth best prospect, I have Alperen Şengün. He's an 18-year-old center, 6'10", out of Turkey. And being 18 years old, he just came off a season where he won Turkish League MVP. And for those that don't know, the Turkish League is a top 5 league in the world. So that's very, very, very impressive for Alperen. Really a back to the basket big. In the post, he's a menace. He has every move in his bag. Spins, fakes, hooks with both hands. His touch is beautiful. He's able to find great. He has great vision out of the post, especially hitting cutters. Weak side shooters, strong side shooters as well. He's really able to read the floor well out of the post. I think he's going to come into the NBA. He's going to get 10 to 12 points right off the bat, I think, out of the post. If he goes to a team where they allow him to play to where they allow him to play to his strengths. A lot of people complain that he's not a modern day big, but I think that's just simply not the case. He's a sneaky good roll man when there was a lot of times where his point guard would drop the ball off to him and he would just rise up, a good amount of feet, a good amount of inches away from the basket. And you'd be like, oh my God, I didn't know he was capable of this. So a very sneaky athlete, very soft touch, great finisher around the basket. And, a lot of people complain that Rudy Gobert, the Clippers were able to beat the Jazz because they could just put, a guy have Gobert size on Gobert, and, Rudy wasn't able to punish the Clippers for doing that. Well, you have a guy in Alperen Şengün where, let's say you do that, and he's just going to be able to put them in a blender underneath the basket, or even in pick and roll situations. He does a great job when he's rolling of catching and hitting people with spins or, ball fakes or in and outs and then spins and finishing around the basket or finding open teammates. That's a very valuable skill set to have in today's NBA. And he doesn't have the best shot right now, but I think he shot very well from the free throw line. And again, with how soft of a touch he has, I expect his shot to continue to grow as he continues to grow and get more NBA experience. So he's going to be, I think, very dominant offensively. And defensively, he's again he's a sneaky athlete, but not a plus athlete. So there are going to be times where he's going to struggle. I think teams are going to attack him in the pick and roll. But with his IQ, I expect him to continue to grow on that end of the floor. So coming into the NBA, his weaknesses are definitely going to be his defense and his shooting. But I think both of those will get better as he gets more experience, gets used to the NBA game with how smart of a player he is. And again, his post touches, and I think he's attacking out of pick and rolls. I think he's going to be a menace out of that. And I think, if the shooting comes around and his defense becomes, about average, and the post scoring prowess that he possessed in the Turkish league transfers over to the NBA, I think you have a very, very, very good player on your hands. Moving on to my sixth best prospect, I have Trey Mann, a 6'3", 6'4" point guard out of Florida. Was an All-American, disappointing his freshman year, but came back, grew an inch or two, really just improved as a ball player. The reason why I have him as high as I do is because I value shot creation, as you can tell, with James Bouknight being as high as he is, Alperen Şengün being able to create his own shot, Evan Mobley can create his own shot, not as good as those other guys, but he still has the potential to be able to. Jalen Green, 25 point per game scorer. Cade Cunningham, I expect to be a very high scorer. Right, these are guys that create their own shot. And Trey Mann, his best skill set is creating his shot from behind the arc. Shot really well from behind the arc in college, and a lot of it was on ball. He's got a very smooth, very slick handle. He's able to create a lot of separation with stop and goes, step back, side steps. Excuse me. He's got it all in his bag. So that's very valuable in the NBA, right? You look at a lot of that's the most valuable skill set in today's NBA. Really, is not just 3-point shooting, but on-ball 3-point shooting, as it puts so much pressure on the defense, to stop that guy. And Trey Mann is continuing to develop as a mid-range scorer, and I think he got much better as a playmaker in his sophomore year as compared to his freshman year. But you put him in the NBA system where teams are going to be having him run off screens. You could get mismatches with him. He could be. Then he can attack he can attack weaker defenders, especially if point guards guard him. I think he's going to be able to continue to get better, creating space and whatnot. And I think he could be a real star at the point guard position. I could definitely see an outcome for Trey Mann where he becomes a 17, 18, 19 point per game scorer with that shooting ability. And that's the reason why I have him as high as I do, and he's continuing to get better as a playmaker. I don't think his finishing around the basket definitely needs work, just because if he lacks that high end athleticism and the ability to really get up there and hang with the trees. But again, that shooting ability, I really value it, and that's the reason why I have him as high as I do. Moving on to my seventh best player, I have Josh Giddey, a point guard out of Australia. Really a pick and roll wizard. That's the reason why I have him as high as I do. At that 6'7" frame, he's a very exciting player, very fun player to watch. Watching him operate in the pick and roll is like watching a surgeon operate surgery. The way he's able to manipulate defenders with ball fakes, eye fakes, pass fakes. He'll fake going one way, go the other way. He's a master manipulator. The way he's able to find his roll man, find shooters, no look passes. He's got it all in the bag. I think Josh Giddey is going to come in and be. He could have a couple highlights on Bleacher Report, every other week or so. And I think his shooting definitely needs some work, especially with the form. I'm not a big fan of it, but he's been hitting them in Australia so far. I think he's going to come in and be a respectable shooter as well as a pick and roll wizard. And I think he's a pretty good shooter. He's a pretty good finisher. Pretty crafty finisher. Again, given how fun he is, really, I'd say a poor man's LaMelo Ball is really how the best way I would describe Josh Giddey. Especially since they both played in the same league in that NBL in Australia. But Josh Giddey being a 6'7" playmaker with shooting upside, and as gifted as a pick and roll operator as he is, at how young he is, there's no reason why he shouldn't be a top 10 prospect in this class. Moving on to my eighth best prospect, I have Moses Moody, freshman out of Arkansas. Really projects to be a high value 3-and-D role player. I always like to compare him to Mikal Bridges. I don't think he's quite the athlete or as quick as Mikal Bridges. I think the one major flaw with Moses Moody is his ability to finish around the basket. He lacks that athleticism, but he makes up with it with being able to draw fouls. which is very valuable at the next level, as we all know with how the NBA game is refereed. But Moses Moody's going to come in. He's one of the best shooters in the class. His handle is continuing to develop. He's got really long arms. He's got a big wingspan, so he's going to be able to, as his handle continues to develop, not a lot of people are going to be able to guard his shot, especially with him being at that 6'6", 6'7" size. And, again, with that wingspan, it's going to be hard for a lot of people to really contest or block his shot. So as his handle continues to develop, his shot is going to get more and more valuable. And as a defender, again, he lacks that athleticism, but with how smart he is and how disciplined he is, and with that wingspan and that height, he's gonna be able to have a high impact on that side of the floor right off the bat from the NBA. So he's gonna come in, play similar role to Markelle. I think he's a better shooter than Markelle Bridges, but not as good of a defender as Markelle Bridges, but still a very good one. And I think he has Chris Middleton. If I had to put a ceiling on Moses Moody, I'd say a Chris Middleton level player, which is very valuable, especially given that he was a freshman this past season. So I really value Moses Moody, and I think he's definitely a top 10 player in this class. Moving on to my 9th best player, I have Quentin Grimes. Was an All-American a couple years ago. Was a projected top 10 pick. I remember he's projected to go like 6 to my New York Knicks in the Zion class. It was Zion, RJ, I think Cam Reddish, Nasir Little, and Quentin Grimes. Disappointed heavily in Kansas. Transferred over to Houston. Got a little bit better, but not better enough to put him on NBA scouts' radar. Then he came out this year and really took over. Just an awesome two-way player at that 6'5", 6'6" frame. He's a very strong player, very athletic player. On the defensive end, he's a great on-ball defender. I think he had lapses off ball, but given how strong and how hard he played on ball most of the time defensively, I think he's going to come in and be an impact player on that side of the floor from day one. And where the value for Quentin Grimes really comes in is that shooting ability. His shot really progressed. I think he has potential to become a three-way scorer in the NBA, especially off the ball. On the ball, he shot really well from three. He's got a bit of a weird form, but the ball goes in. His offhand kind of like peers off when he shoots the ball, but his shot goes in. As we all saw, I'm sure we all saw the NBA draft combine where he was just killing people in the scrimmages. I think he shot nearly perfect in 3-point range, which just shows you how good he really is and how far he's come along. I really value Quentin Grimes' mental ability, and he's continued to get better every single year. And usually you see recruits who disappoint early on in their career, and it can get to them mentally. Quentin Grimes stuck the course. He put the work in, and he got better to the point where he is going to be most likely a first-round pick in the NBA. I think he's going to come in from day one and be a 3-and-D role player who can create his own shot. And I think he's going to be a really valuable pick to whoever drafts him. I have him in my top 10. I think he's amongst the top 10 best players in this class, again, just because of how valuable of a defender he is, how valuable that his shooting is, especially off the dribble as well. And I think he's going to continue to get better as he has every single year in his college career, his collegiate career. And then moving on to my final prospect to round out the top 10, I have Cam Thomas out of LSU, was a freshman. Played for Oak Hill Academy, one of the best high schools in the country. His senior year, came to LSU, was really the best scorer in college basketball. At that 6'4" frame, he just gets buckets. That's all Cam Thomas does. He doesn't look to facilitate. He doesn't play no defense. Cam Thomas gets buckets. He gets buckets in spades, in the paint, mid-range, three. You name it, he can get the bucket. Really a 6'4" Lou Williams. That's what a lot of people like to compare him to, but I think he could be more than that. If you put him in NBA and with around NBA coaches where they really tell him, where they can really highlight his playmaking, because it's not as if Cam Thomas can't be a playmaker. It's just that he chooses not to because he's just looking to get his. So I think with proper guidance in the NBA, he could really be a force as a scorer as well as playing, because he makes a lot of high-level reads, but most of the time he's just thinking, I'm just going to score, I'm just going to score, I'm just going to score, which is fine because he's just that level of scorer. I mean, you can make an argument right up there with Cade Cunningham. I'd put Cade Cunningham, Bouknight, Green, Cam Thomas, Quentin Grimes, and Trey Mann. Trey Mann not so much in that conversation, but definitely Kent. I put them all in the same in the same group as the best scorers in this class. Cam Thomas was the best scorer statistically in college basketball last season. So as a freshman, being that 6'4" size, getting his shot off, he's going to come into the NBA and get his. And I think that's very valuable to have in today's NBA. And you take a look at, a player like Cam Payne, how valuable he is for the Suns to come in and get buckets and control that offense. And I think Cam Thomas has that ability to be a Cameron Payne level player, and even more. But it's just about the proper guidance that he's going to get at the NBA level. But, there's no question about his scoring. You're not going to be drafting him for his defense. But again, how good of a scorer he is. And his playmaking potential, which he does have. He just doesn't, look to make passes all that often. But, that scoring potential at the next level, it's hard not to value that. So these are my top 10. These are the top 10 prospects. And if you really see, I'm valuing, there's a trend amongst these guys. They're all scorers who show, playmaking flashes, because that's really how the game has evolved. And as we move on to as we cover the 11 to 30 prospects, you'll really see how much I value shooting as well as playmaking. Moving on to the second part of my big board, we are going to be covering the prospects I have ranked from 11 all the way down to 20. First off, at 11, I have JT Thor, a freshman, 6'9", 6'10", about 205, 210 pounds, out of Auburn. Has a really high ceiling as a 3-and-D player. I think he's arguably the most raw prospect in this draft, but I really like his physical tools, and I really like his work ethic. I think he's going to come in and develop. I think he's got a very smooth stroke. I think he's going to come into the NBA, shoot around 34-35% from behind the arc. Did a great job attacking closeouts, super athletic as a role man. I think he's going to be able to switch multiple positions at that 6'9" frame, really be a high-value 3-and-D role player at that size. And given how young he is, I'm pretty sure he's the youngest player in the draft. I know he's going to be 18 by the time he is drafted, but I know there's also a couple other guys that are 18, so I'm not sure, the exact months, but I do know he's amongst the youngest players in the draft. At that age of 18 years old, how polished already of a shot he does have, given how small of a time he's been playing basketball. He's going to be an effective role man. He's going to be able to space the floor, be a multi-positional defender on the defensive side of the floor, as well as some playmaking potential and some dribbling, handling the ball potential. So that's very scary for how athletically gifted he is, and the skill set that he does have, and the skill set and the potential skill set that he can reach. So again, most of the players that I have ahead of JT Thor, are really proven players, right? Like Quentin Grimes, who's much older, or like a Trey Mann. But I think JT Thor's athletic traits just his athletic traits with the skills that he already has and what they could continue to become, given how young he is. I think that warrants him being not necessarily a top 10 player in this class, but just I have him right outside of that. And then moving on to my 12th best player, I have Jalen Suggs. This is going to surprise a lot of people, but we could start off with the good, I think, about Jalen Suggs' game. On the defensive end, I think he's going to be a very, very good off-ball defender. I think he's going to be able to rebound the ball very well for a point guard, and I think he's going to be able to push the pace. He's a very good playmaker in transition. I think he's amongst the best playmakers in transition in this class. On the offensive side of the floor, I think he's going to be a solid role. Offensive side of the floor is really where I struggle with Jalen Suggs, because I see the potential in him, as a ball handler, but when you're looking at most people have him as a top 4 pick. When you're looking at other point guards that are selected that high, I mean, we could compare him to Markelle Fultz. What was Markelle Fultz's best skill set coming out of the draft? His ability to create for himself, right? Even Lonzo Ball was created for himself at a high value, at a high volume and efficiency at UCLA in the college level, right? Even a player like Luka Doncic was created for himself at a much better rate than Jalen Suggs did. Even a player like Trey Young. Right, so Jalen Suggs is nowhere near the ball handler of those guys. He has an all right handle, very inconsistent in my opinion. His jump shot, I think, is still a major question mark, and his jump shot is a major question mark. His handles are a major question mark. So he's not going to be, the key of an offense kind of point guard. He's going to be much more of an off-ball point guard, which is fine because I think he's going to be able to attack, catch, and he's going to be able to attack closeouts. I think his shot is decent, not anything great or special. But again, even on defense, I think he can be attacked on the ball. So Jalen Suggs, I don't think he's a top 4 pick, right? I don't think a lot of people have him locked in at number 4. But again, you look at when you're taking a player that high, you're expecting him to be a franchise player, a franchise changer. And I just don't think Jalen Suggs is going to be that, given the lack of handles and the handles that a guard selected in the top 4 in a draft requires them to have. Because essentially, if you're picking that high in the draft, you're looking for a star. Right, you're looking for a franchise guard, and Jalen Suggs just doesn't have the ability to be that. I think he's going to be a great role player in the NBA. I think he's going to be more of an off-ball guard. I think he's going to get to the point where he can catch and shoot threes consistently. I think you can get creative with him, especially with his athleticism. I think you could use him as a role man with some big wings. But I think really he's a role player, right? Which is no shame. There's no shame in that. I think he could be a very good role player. I think defensively he needs some work on the ball. But I think overall he could be a very, very quality defender, brings a lot of energy to the game, great facilitator in transition. But again, just his lack of handles and a lack of a consistent on the ball jump shot. I see no reason why Jalen Suggs is valued as high as he is. Right, a player like James Bouknight has a better offensive player than Jalen Suggs right now and has a much higher ceiling. I feel the same way about a player like Quentin Grimes or Trey Mann or Moses Moody than Jalen Suggs. And you have to keep in mind that Jalen Suggs was playing with NBA level players. He was playing with a first round pick in Corey Kissberg. Drew Timme is going to be most likely an NBA player, probably a second round pick next year. Joel Ayayi committed to the draft, most likely going to go in the second round this year. He was playing with really a college all-star team who were spacing the floor, and they were running NBA style offense, which means that he had a much better, a significantly better situation than a lot of other guys, like as we previously stated, James Bouknight or Trey Mann, right? So I think Jalen Suggs looked a lot better than. I think those guys are going to look a lot better than Jalen Suggs in the NBA. And Jalen Suggs, as athletic as he is, it's not the athleticism to where it's not a Jalen Green level athleticism where Jalen Green will go hang in the air and finish around guys, or even like a James Bouknight where he'll just rise up on somebody and put you under the rim, right? Jalen Suggs just doesn't have that ability. So I see him. He's most likely going to be a good role player, a very good role player, which is perfectly fine, right? That's fine. But people are having these high expectations from him. He's most likely going to go forward to Toronto. He's not going to be the savior for that franchise. I think he's going to be a solid fit around a guy like Fred VanVleet or, like a Pascal Siakam. But again, his lack of handles and a lack of a jump shot consistently doesn't warrant a guard being taken in that top 4 pick. Because again, when you take a guard that high, you're looking for a star, a franchise savior, a guy who's going to be able to score and facilitate at a high level for you. And I don't think Jalen Suggs is going to be able to do that. I think he's going to be a great role player, which is why I have him at 12. Moving on to my 13th best prospect, I have Jaden Springer. Springer is a 6'4", 6'5" combo guard out of Tennessee. Played at IMG in high school, so he's the story. Jaden Springer is that he's always been surrounded by other talent. He's been playing with high level talent his whole career, so he knows how to fit in with other talented players. He can space the floor. I think his shot. He didn't shoot all that great in college, but I think it's going to translate in the NBA. He's a big player. I think he's going to be able to attack closeouts, run offenses in the NBA. I think the biggest knock on Jaden Springer for me personally is his lack of assertiveness, which I can understand because, again, he played against with IMG with Noah Farrakhan and Josh Green, Mando Bakke. He played with other high level players, and Tennessee as well. He played with a projected lottery pick in Keon Johnson, who we will get to later. But But I would like him to be much more assertive. He knows how to fill his role, and he plays that role very well. As well on the defensive end, given how big he is, he could switch both guard positions. Smart defender, not the best athlete in the world, but again, a smart defender, similar to like a smaller Moses Moody on the defensive end. I kind of that's the way to put it in simplest terms with Jaden Springer. But again, on offense, I would like to see him be much more assertive. But again, that 6'4", 6'5" combo guard, space the floor, can handle the offense, get his teammates involved, play on and off the ball. On defense, switch both guard positions. I mean, what's not to like there? And I mean, if he can get assertive and continue to develop his handle to the point where he can be a real number one, he could be a real point guard, a real starting point guard in the NBA. I mean, that will only help him, help his jump shot. And, along with his assertiveness, which I think those are the swing skills for Jaden Springer. He's going to come in and be a great role player in the NBA. But, I think his jump, his shooting off the ball, his confidence, and as well as his handle. If the confidence and the handles can get better, I can see Jaden Springer being a very, very, very good two-way combo guard in this league for a long time. Excuse me if you hear any lawn work going on. I think one of my neighbors has their lawn is doing their lawn. So I apologize if anybody can hear that. But moving on to who I have 14th, I have Trey Murphy the third, 6'9", 6'9" forward, really a 3-and-D role player. I've talked about him before in a couple other videos, so I'm going to briefly skim over him. A 3-and-D role player, 21 years old, not much room to grow, but at that 6'9" frame, valuable on ball. I think he's going to be a valuable on ball defender, valuable catch and shoot threat. A 6'9" 3-and-D role player. I mean, what's not to like there? I think he's going to come in and have a day one impact to whoever drafts him. Moving on to 15, I have Chris Duarte. Again, similar to Trey Murphy. I went back and forth debating between these two, but Chris Duarte is 3 years older. He's going to be 24 when he comes into the NBA, which is super late for a rookie. But he was a very good player for Oregon. Great catch and shoot threat. A great defender at the shooting guard spot. Again, in the NBA, he's going to be able to guard ones, twos. He's very strong. Great shooter off the ball. Shown flashes of being able to shoot on the ball, but again, given his age, he's aging towards the prime years of his career. So he's going to come in and be a valuable role player at that guard position. I put Trey Murphy over him just because Trey Murphy is a good amount taller, but still both going to be valuable role players. At 16, I have Franz Wagner, sophomore out of Michigan. I think Franz Wagner, a lot of people value him a lot higher than me. I think when you watch the tape on Franz Wagner, I think he takes advantage of his height a lot and just how much smaller the college competition is compared to him. Like people talk about, I think he definitely has his calling card is definitely his defensive impact and his defensive versatility. I think he had a great motor on that side of the floor. You see a lot of times where he would just block smaller guys and he would just start screaming. And it would get the whole crowd going. It would get the momentum on Michigan's side. So, a great player, fun player to watch on that side of the floor. But again, I feel especially on offense too. He got a lot of buckets out of just taking advantage of how much smaller everybody was around him. His shot is not nearly as good as a lot of people would make it out to be. He didn't shoot all that well from three. I think the mechanics definitely need work as well. So that's a big a big swing skill for him. But again, I think he took advantage of his size in the college, and I'm a bit hesitant to see how that is in the NBA when guys are as tall as him and much more stronger and experienced than him. But I think he's a great playmaker at that size on offense, so that definitely adds value to his versatility. I think he's going to be a versatile role player. I think that's what he's going to be, and especially at that 6'9" frame. 6'9", really closer to 6'10", especially if he could get that shot down, he could be a valuable two-way player for whoever drafts him. And again, versatility is the big thing with Franz Wagner on both sides of the floor. But again, I'm a bit hesitant on him just because I feel when you watch the tape, he took advantage of his size. And again, I'm a bit nervous to see how he'll translate to the NBA. But again, he definitely was productive. One of the best versatile defenders in this class. Again, one of the best playmakers at his size in this class, and we've seen a lot of guys, flash that playmaking at that size in this class. So that's it's very valuable with Franz Wagner. Moving on to Jonathan Kaminga at 17. This is going to shock a lot of people. I think a lot of people are going to be upset about this one, but I'm really not a big fan of Jonathan Kaminga. I think Franz Wagner is better. I think all these guys are going to be better than Jonathan Kaminga. I think Jonathan Kaminga definitely has a star upside, right? Every draft we see a couple of that one guy that gets drafted, really high because he's raw, young, big body, great body at the next level, but the skill needs work. And Jonathan Kaminga is that guy this year, and I don't like his touch. I don't like his shot form. I think the shot form needs work, and the touch is pretty alarming. Given how young he is, he can get better, but again, I just don't see. I don't see him having a higher impact. I think the most likely outcome of Jonathan Kaminga is a less polished version of Harrison Barnes, because again, I mean, look at the guys that succeed in the NBA. Do any of these forwards that are super raw and need work on their games to that level like that Jonathan Kaminga does? How many of those guys pan out? And how many of the guys like Trey Mann pan out, or Quentin Grimes, where they find immediate success in the NBA and they continue to grow, right? So that's my mindset on Jonathan Kaminga from day one. He's not going to be much of a floor spacer. He's going to need the ball in his hands to continue to develop, to reach that ceiling that a lot of people have him reaching. And I think he definitely has that ceiling, but I doubt that he'll ever reach it just because of how far how high of a mountaintop he needs to climb to get to that ceiling. But he can get to it. I'm not saying he can't. But this is my rankings of who I think will be the best players in the draft, not necessarily who has the highest ceiling. So if we're talking about ceiling, Jonathan Kaminga would be much higher. But like compared to a player like JT Thor, I think JT Thor has a smoother stroke than Jonathan Kaminga. He's bigger than Jonathan Kaminga, a better defender than Jonathan Kaminga, and he's younger than Jonathan Kaminga. So, I mean, what are we really doing here? But I think Jonathan Kaminga is going to be a solid player. Again, a Harrison Barnes level player, which is not a bad player, especially in this range. But I think out of the top five, I think him and Jalen Suggs are definitely not going to live up to the pedigree that the other three guys in that top five are going to be. And again, they're definitely going to be top. Him and Jalen Suggs are definitely going to join Cade, Green, and Mobley as top five picks. But I don't have them valued as nearly as high as those three guys. But could Jonathan Kaminga reach his star ceiling and prove me wrong? Sure he can. But do I think he will? No way. I don't think he just has too much to overcome. And as well as on the defensive end too, he's very raw on that side of the floor. People really just like his intangibles with his body and his athleticism. But again, it's just so much for him to have to overcome that. Again, it's hard seeing him reach that star ceiling that a lot of people seem to think he can reach. But I have him being, Harrison Barnes level player. But again, we could compare him to Franz Wagner. Franz Wagner's bigger, not that much older. I think the shooting's about a wash. Franz Wagner's the better playmaker, the more versatile defender. Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy's 3 years older than Jonathan Kaminga. I'll give him that. Trey Murphy's on a different world of a shooter than Kaminga, a much better defender than Kaminga, taller than Kaminga. Again, so that's my mindset with Jonathan Kaminga being at 17. Moving on to 18, I have Miles McBride, sophomore guard out of West Virginia. One of my favorite players in the draft. Very bulky at that 6'3" body. Really built like a football player, but Miles McBride is very crafty, much better shooter than you'd think when you watch him play. He seems like he'd be the type to just be like a slashing guard, but he actually shot the ball really well in college, and I think he's going to shoot it respectably in the NBA to start off his career. On the defensive end, I think he's going to be able to switch both guard positions, really gets after the ball, and I think he's going to be a high-level two-way impact point guard. Right off the bat in the NBA, I think he's going to need some work on the offensive end, but I think his motor and his body on the defensive end, he's going to get minutes right away in the NBA. Miles McBride, the best way I would like to compare him to is a younger Davion Mitchell. I think he needs more work. I think he needs a little bit more work than Davion Mitchell. I think he needs a little bit more work to get to that level where Davion Mitchell is now. But again, keep in mind how old Davion Mitchell is. And let's put it this way. It took Davion Mitchell 3 years to put up the level, to put up the production that Miles McBride is putting up in his sophomore year. So I think Miles McBride is the better player. I think they're similar players, but I think Miles McBride is younger. I think he's as good. I think he's a better shooter than Davion Mitchell. He's a good facilitator, good slasher. I think he's going to be a solid two-way impact point guard at the next level. Moving on to my 19th ranked prospect, I have Jason Preston. Jason Preston, a lot of people have him ranked as a second-round pick. I don't see why. I get they're hesitant about his jump shot really translating as well as his defense. He's going to struggle on the defensive end, but I think his offensive upside outweighs his defensive concerns. He's one of the best passers in this class. He's got no looks in the bag. He's a pick and roll wizard, not on the level of Josh Giddey just because how tall Josh Giddey. But Jason Preston is 6'4", a passing wizard, able to find open teammates. And he could shoot the ball. He could shoot the lights out the ball. He's got a really funky shot. It's kind of like the best way I could compare his shot form. It's kind of similar to Emmanuel Quigley's. Like they kind of like shoot like that. The best way to compare Jason Preston is like he plays like a high school LaMelo Ball at the college level, and he's very successful at it. And I think if his handle could continue to get more consistent, his jump shot could continue to stay consistent at the next level. I think he could have some legitimate upside, but I think he's going to be a solid offensive impact bench player for whoever drafts him. And I think his offensive impact outweighs his defensive concerns. And I think, again, if his handle and his shot continues to grow, I think he could be a steal for whoever drafts him. Moving on to my 20th ranked prospect, I have Jared Butler. I'm thankful that Jared Butler is able to play. He got cleared. He had a heart condition, but was the point guard for the Baylor team that just won the national championship. Very smart player, two-way impact player, going to be a very solid role player for years to come. Very solid defender on and off the ball. I think that's where his bread and butter is. I think he's going to be a high-level defender for years to come. Offensively, he's a good catch-and-shoot player. He's a smart cutter. He's really, I said it in my Thunder video, I think he's a right-handed Jalen Brunson with less offense and more defense. He's similar to Jalen Brunson. He's very crafty, just like Jalen Brunson. Doesn't have as much as the handles or nearly as much touch as Jalen Brunson. And Jalen Brunson is a strict lefty. Jared Butler is a strict righty. Jared Butler only goes right. You never see Jared Butler finish with his left hand or anything of that sort. But he's going to be a solid solid two-way guard for years to come. And, you're getting him at that 20 range. You're going to be a plus defender, can space the floor for you, handle your offense, play on and off the ball, can cut to the basket. There's not much more you want to ask out of a point guard role player, especially at this range. I have him below a guy like Miles McBride just because how much more younger Miles McBride is than Jared Butler. And again, it took Jared Butler and the player like Davion Mitchell, 3-4 years to get to the level where Miles McBride got in 2 years. And then Jason Preston, I think Jason Preston just has much more excitement and has a much higher ceiling than Jared Butler. But Jared Butler is going to be a great role player in the NBA, and there's nothing wrong with that. To finish off my big board, we are going to be covering the prospects that I have ranked from 21 all the way down to 30. To start off at 21, I have Nashon Highland, Bones Highland, as many call him. Very good, very, very, very good player. I think he's going to come in and be a better version of Emmanuel Quigley. Great shooter on and off the ball. Very, very, very quick handle. Very quick, shifty player. Great at stopping and going, changing pace. A lot of times he'll go stop. Defenders will like kind of run past him a little bit, and then he'll get up a three. Can shoot the lights out the ball from anywhere on the court, which is very valuable. He's a bigger, better shooting version of Emmanuel Quigley, in my opinion, which we've seen the impact that a player like Emmanuel Quigley has had in the NBA. So I expect him to come into the NBA and provide positive minutes for whoever drafts him. The reason why I have him ranked a little bit lower than some of the most of the other guards is just because of his lack of strength. He has a really thin frame. I think he, as good as he is on offense, he's a pretty big liability defensively just because of how skinny he is. So I think he will get attacked on that end of the floor, but I think offensively his shooting on and off the ball as well as his handle, again, I expect him to be a better version of Emmanuel Quigley. Moving on to my 22nd ranked prospect, I have Joe Weiskamp. In my opinion, one of the best shooters in the class. I have him ranked over Corey Kissberg, who we'll get to next. But Joe Weiskamp, I think, is a great shooter, an amazing shooter, both on the ball as well as off the ball, coming off screens, running, moving. He's shown flashes of being a shooter off the ball. Again, given how old he is, there is a ceiling there is a ceiling on his upside. But just how great of a shooter he is in different ways, right? Not just catching and shooting. Again, as I said, moving on the ball, moving off screens, catching and shooting, as well as showing some flashes as a ball handler, attacking in fast breaks, as well as catching, attacking closeouts. I think is not only his shooting, but the different ways in which he can get up shots. I think he's going to be again a day one impact for whoever drafts him. Moving on to my 23rd ranked prospect, I have Corey Kissberg, who the reason why I have Corey Kissberg below Joe Weiskamp is because Corey Kissberg mainly thrives on catch and shoot opportunities. He still needs to work on moving off screens and whatnot, which Joe Weiskamp is already very good at. But Corey Kissberg, the best catch and shoot shooter in this draft class. A lot of people want to talk about his sneaky athleticism. He can handle the ball, this and that. He's not going to be able to do any of that at the NBA level. Really, his role is going to be catch and shoot and survive on defense. Really, a Joe Harris level player, which is valuable. But again, people talk about him being a top 20 pick. If all you're really offering to a team is catch and shoot spacing, which is he's the best catch and shoot shooter in the draft. But again, if that's all you're going to be offering a team, I prefer other guys who can shoot the lights out, handling the ball or coming off screens or have potential to be like real shot makers at the next level. And, given how old he is, that's really what he's going to be is a catch and shoot player and not much else. That's why I have him ranked as low as I do. Another surprise at 24, Davion Mitchell at 24. Again, Davion Mitchell, I think, is going to be a great defender. It's just offensively, I'm not a believer. I'm not a believer in his shot. He did shoot 45% off the rees in college, but again, if you go back, he only shot 74% from the free throw line. He shot much worse from the 3-point line in his previous 2 years in college. It's just, I feel like it's a fluke season. The form, I don't love the form. I don't love his handle, his shot creation. I think he's a good, not great playmaker. I think he's going to be a defensive specialist in the NBA who can get hot from three occasionally, which is a solid player. But again, it took him. I wouldn't value that over a player like Nashon Highland, who's I think is going to be a better version of Emmanuel Quickley. I wouldn't value that over excuse me, a Jared Butler who's going to be a solid two-way player in the NBA. I wouldn't value that over Jason Preston with the offensive upside that he does have. Miles Mcbride, who I think is a very similar player to Davion Mitchell, is much younger and I think is a much more consistent, better shooter than Davion Mitchell. I wouldn't take that over Jaden Springer and Jaden Springer's two-way ability at a much higher size. I wouldn't take that over Jalen Suggs. I don't think I need to go into that. Quentin Grimes' ability to be a two-way player as well as a much more consistent shooter on and off the ball. Cameron Thomas's ability to shoot the ball. I mean, even Josh Giddey, Moses Moody, Trey Mann, these guys, they just have they're much more trustworthy players on the offensive end. And I think Davion Mitchell is going to be a great defender in the NBA, very good defender at that point guard spot. I'm not sure how much he's going to be able to switch just because of how small he is. But again, that offensive game, I'm not really a believer. I think this was a fluke season shooting the ball, especially from the 3-point line. His free throw percentage was bad. The rest, his previous 2 years shooting from behind the arc, this is really his only plus shooting percentage-wise season, and that was from behind the arc, and I'm very cautious, and even the eye test doesn't really support him shooting 45% from behind the arc. So I have him at 24. Another player that's going to surprise a lot of people is Scottie Barnes at 25. Similar to Davion Mitchell, I think he's going to be a multi-position defender at that 6'9" frame, 6'8", 6'9" frame. But the problem with Scottie Barnes is just his shooting. He just doesn't have a jump shot. I think the form is horrible, the touch is horrible, and it's just, people have him pegged in as the 6th pick in the draft, and he needs to be surrounded by other players in order to achieve his ceiling. And, going that high to a franchise where they need him to come in and produce on his own and not have to rely on other people when that's not his game, I think that's very worrying. I think you're setting Scottie Barnes up for disappointment. And, I don't think the jump shot's going to get much better, to be honest with you. The form isn't there. The touch isn't there. The free throw percentages aren't there. The 3-point percentages aren't there. He wasn't a good shooter in high school. He's never been a good shooter at any point in his basketball career. So I don't expect that to change in the NBA, even with the amount of work. But again, he's a great defender and as good of a facilitator as he is, especially in the fast break. But he could get away with it in the fast break. He could highlight his playmaking in the fast break situations. But in the half court when the game slows down, you need that scoring ability in order to highlight your playmaking ability. And Scottie Barnes just doesn't have that, right? He doesn't have that, so that playmaking is going to get diminished unless he was in the Golden State, with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, but they already have Draymond Green, right? So he was not a fit there. With the Thunder, again, I've talked about it in the Thunder video. I don't like the fit with Shea and all those young guys, because Shea, I think, for Shea to thrive, he needs a pick and pop option, and Scottie Barnes just is not that. So you go down the list, and it's Scottie Barnes. Having Scottie Barnes this high, again, the defense, I think, he's going to be a good defender. I think the playmaking is overrated because he doesn't have a jump shot, and then the jump shot I just don't see getting better. He doesn't have any handle, doesn't have any creativity. Scoring the ball on his own has potential as a post presence, but again, why would you have Scottie Barnes post up? Like, if that's what you're going to on offense, then that's pretty sad. And I think every single team in the NBA has at least one player they'd rather give the ball to than let Scottie Barnes get post touches. So I think Scottie Barnes should fall in it would be better for him and his career longevity if he fell in the draft and went to a team with floor spacing where he could come in and play his role. Moving on to my 26th ranked prospect, I have Isaiah Jackson, center for Kentucky. Going to be a rim roller at the next level. I think he's the best rim runner in the draft. His not much to talk about with Isaiah Jackson. I think he's going to be a solid defender, solid rebounder. The reason why I have him as low as he is just because that skill set you can get really anywhere, right? That rim rolling ability that he has. I mean, he could be a really good two-way defender, especially being a Kentucky prospect. Kentucky's prospects always have some parts of their game that they show off in the NBA that we didn't know they had. So maybe he'll come out with like some 3-point, with like some ability to space the floor, maybe out to the mid range, not the 3-pointer. But I think he's going to be able to switch pretty well. Defensively, maybe not guard all point guards, maybe some shooting guards, maybe some forwards. He has the potential to do that, but he's really just going to be a rim runner. And all these other players that I have ranked above him are mainly guards and forwards that can shoot the ball and have shot creation potential. And that's really what's valuable in today's NBA. And it's not that Isaiah Jackson is going to be drafted 26. I think he's going to be drafted 11th to Charlotte, assuming Charlotte doesn't go after any big men or thinks they're going to get any big men in free agency. I have him pegged going there. But just how valuable his skill set is compared to a player like Nashon Highland. I value Nashon Highland's skill set more valuable in today's NBA. Not saying that Isaiah Jackson is a bad player. It's just the time and era that we're in and what's valuable in today's NBA and what you value. Moving on to my 27th ranked prospect, I have Josh Christopher, 6'4", 6'5", shooting guard out of Arizona State. Josh Christopher, I have a love-hate relationship. When I was doing this list, I was debating putting him up as high as, top 20. But again, his shot selection is not there. The eye test, he's very athletically gifted, has a great body, really a football body. But I was comparing him and Cam Thomas, but Cam Thomas is just a smoother scorer, more fun to watch. Like, you could tell Cam Thomas is gonna do what he does in the NBA. Josh Christopher, I don't know about that, especially with that shot selection, the quality of shots that he takes, and just I don't think he has the handle to get off the shots that he took in college at the next level consistently. And I don't think he's much of a defender, so that's why I have him ranked at 27. But again, with that body, and he does have physical and some natural talent, so I could see him panning out in the right system. But just again, shot quality, the lack of defense, the lack of overall skill in order to get off those kind of shots consistently in the NBA. I don't think he has that. Again, Arizona State wasn't the best situation for him, but still, we have to look at what we have. Moving on to my 28th ranked prospect, this is going to anger a lot of people. I have Sharif Cooper. Now, the reason why I have Sharif Cooper as low as I do is because he is a 5'10 guard in reality, because this is sports and we always add a couple inches to our height. Listed at 6'1", in reality he's probably 5'11", 5'10". He's probably 170 pounds max. He's going to be a liability defensively. Teams are going to have a field day with him in pick and rolls, ISOs, switches, whatever. He's going to be a liability. Arguably, up there with Trae Young, is the worst defender in the NBA right off the bat in his NBA career. And offensively, he has no type of jump shot whatsoever. He has a hitch in his shot. I talked about it in the Thunder video. He steps forward when he should. He kind of almost like catapults. His like lower body leans in and his upper body leans back. He didn't fix that. He didn't fix his jump shot. Looking at his combine workout. So that's a real negative. He shot awful from from behind the arc in college, and I expect that to continue in the NBA. So we're looking at a defensive liability point guard who is not going to be able to create his own shot or shoot off the ball, give you any sort of spacing. Teams are going to dare him to shoot. Has a good, not great handle. I think he lost the ball a good amount of times. I think most of it was just due out of him being creative, but I think he has a good handle, but not a great handle, not a Trae Young level handle or anything like that. And, he might be one of the best playmakers in the draft, sure. But, again, what have I valued? Looking at this list, Nashon Highland, Jaden Springer, Miles McBride, Jason Preston, Jared Butler, Trey Mann, I have him at 6. James Bouknight at 4. Cam Thomas at 10, right? I value spacing the floor in today's game. Sharif Cooper is not going to be able to do that, and hence his playmaking is going to be hindered because of his lack of a jump shot on and off the ball. You combine that with how horrible of a defender he's going to be at the NBA level, and he's a backup point guard at best. The only reason why I have him at 28 is because of that playmaking skill and how good it is. But again, at that NBA level, without the jump shot and how bad of a defender he is, he's not going to be a starting point guard, and teams drafting him any higher than the 25 to 30 range, unless he does fix that jump shot. Teams are going to be in for it's going to be a non-value add pick for a fringe backup point guard if he doesn't fix his jump shot. He might be out of the league in 5 years if he doesn't fix that jump shot, because let's face reality. Backup point guards need to be able to space the floor. Jeff Teague is barely out of the NBA, pretty much. He just won a championship, but he shouldn't have been getting. He's not a finals caliber player, right? So Sharif Cooper could potentially be out of the NBA if he doesn't fix his jump shot, just given how much of a liability he is defensively and how bad that shot is. Second to last, we have Keon Johnson at 29. Keon Johnson, I have him as low as, again, we all know, we could speak about the positives first. That freak athlete, he's the best athlete in the draft with that 48-inch vertical. It's a record. Strong defender, I think. A positive impact defender. Again, both on and off the ball, given that speed, that strength, that athleticism at that 6'5", 6'6" frame. Was the man at Tennessee, but on the offensive end of the floor, I really I'm scared for Keon Johnson. I think his touch might be the worst out of these guys so far, out of everybody in this top 30 list. I think he has the worst touch. I think he has arguably the worst jump shot. And that's pretty scary. He's a guard. He's not a big man. See, if Keon Johnson was Isaiah Jackson's height, no problem. But being as even if he was tall, I think he's going to be able to finish around the basket in the NBA level just because of how athletic he is. You could get creative and use him as a roll man and just have him put somebody on a poster. But again, a 6'5", 6'6" guy who catches and attacks off the dribble to one dribble, gets to the basket, and a roll man. That's going to be his value on the offensive side of the floor. And as good of a defender as he is, that touch and that shooting form, I dislike it more than anybody else in this top 30. And again, I value shooting, as you guys have seen, shooting, shot creation. That's what I value. And Keon Johnson is offers arguably the least amount in that department out of anybody so far in the top 30, and that's why I have him so low as low as I do. And finally, to round out my list, I have Usman Garuba at 30. Usman Garuba, overseas player, Very good defender at the 6'9", 6'8" frame. Super strong, super fast. A lot of hustle plays. A lot of great blocks. I think he's going to be a great impact defender from day one. But again, similar to Keon Johnson, just no offensive game. He's going to be a 6'9" roll man. And again, you're looking at the NBA. He's not going to be able to get away with that in the NBA unless he gets some sort of offensive game, which he doesn't have at the moment. So we've seen a player similar. He reminds me a lot of Sekun Deboya, and Sekun Deboya is not even getting minutes for the Detroit Pistons. So that's why I have Usman Garuba as low as I do. And that's the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I know it was a very long video, but I wanted to get my thoughts out and my rankings of each prospect before the draft out. I went against the consensus, which, I spent a lot of time watching each of these prospects, and these are my thoughts and rankings of these prospects. Am I saying these that the prospects are going to turn out exactly like how I'm saying they will? Of course not, but I did my work on each prospect, and these are my rankings and my thoughts on them after doing all that work. And it's better to stick to your opinion than go with what everybody else is saying, which is what I did. Again, I valued, looking at who I valued, I had a lot of guards there, a lot of guards that have shot creation potential, two-way potential. So again, that's what I value. And moving forward, I'm going to be trying to make a mock draft. I've been debating making a mock draft or not, just because, it would be kind of similar to what people are already putting out. And I kind of want it to be, I don't want to put out the same content as everybody else. So I'll look into making a mock draft. Please let me know in the comments if you want, if I should make a mock draft. And let me know your thoughts on my big board, what you agree with, what you disagree with, what you think about, some hot names that I put, like James Bouknight at 4, as low as I put Kaminga and Suggs. Let me know your guys' thoughts. But thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and see you guys later. Peace.